I was standing on the corner of Rue de la Liberté when I saw the boots. Dozens of them, marching in perfect synchrony over the cobblestones that my grandfather had helped to lay. The sound echoed between the stone buildings like a heart beating in the wrong rhythm. I didn't cry when France fell. I didn't shout when the flags with the swastika were hung in the town hall windows. But in that moment, watching those boots crush the dust of the summer of 1940, something inside me cracked. My name is André. I was born in this French provincial town where everyone knows each other by first name. I was a soldier for 3 weeks before everything collapsed. 3 weeks that felt like 3 minutes. When I came home, my mother didn't recognize me by my eyes. She said I had the look of someone who'd seen the end of the world. The occupation transformed our town into a strange place. The streets remained the same, but the air had a different weight. People spoke more quietly, walked more quickly, avoided glances. I worked at Monsieur Dubois's bakery, kneading bread at 4 in the morning, when the town was still asleep. It was the only time I could breathe. It was on one of those early mornings that I heard the rumors. Madame Laurent, who lived above the bakery, came down the stairs with red eyes. Her granddaughter, Marie, was on the list. The list. That word no one fully pronounced, but everyone understood. Deportation. To where? No one knew for certain. What mattered was that those who got on the trains didn't come back. Madame Laurent gripped my hand with a strength that didn't match her 70 years. André, you know this town. Every alley, every cellar, every passage. She didn't need to finish. I knew what she was asking. I also knew it was impossible. The Germans patrolled every corner. There was a curfew. Roadblocks. Dogs. But that night, lying in my narrow room, looking at the cracks in the ceiling, I made a decision. It wasn't heroism. It wasn't courage. It was simply the impossibility of continuing to live if I did nothing. My father used to say that a man isn't measured by what he conquers, but by what he cannot ignore. I couldn't ignore that list. Over the next 3 days, I walked through the town as if I were merely making bread deliveries. But my eyes counted the soldiers on every corner. Memorized the patrol schedules. Observed where the sniffer dogs became most agitated. I began to draw a mental map of the routes. The town revealed secrets I'd never noticed. The tunnel beneath the church that connected to the cemetery. The cellar of the old library with an exit to the back of the market. I discovered there were 19 people on the list. 19 lives that would be torn from the town on a Tuesday, at 5 in the morning. We had only one chance. A single night. Monday into Tuesday. New moon. Darkness would be our ally. I gathered the group on a Saturday afternoon, in the church cellar. There were 7 of us organizing the escape of 19. I explained the route. First, would leave in small groups, using the shadows. Then would descend into the old tunnels. From there, we'd surface near the river and follow through the forest to the free zone. And if they catch us, a man asked. His voice trembled. I looked at him and all the others. If they catch us, I'll take all the blame. I'll say I forced you. Heavy silence. But we won't be caught. Monday was the longest day of my life. Every hour dragged. I kneaded the bread mechanically, but my mind was on the night to come. What if the patrol changed route? What if the dogs caught our scent? So many what ifs that my head throbbed. At 11 at night, I dressed in dark clothes. I took the torch with the red lens that my father used for night fishing. I looked at the family photo on the wall. Perhaps it was better that my mother didn't know what I was about to do. And that night, walking through the shadows of my occupied town, I didn't know that every step would lead me to a place from which there would be no return. What happened in the tunnels changed who I was forever. Some secrets are too heavy to carry. And mine is buried in that night. If you want to understand why I disappeared, you need to hear the rest. Because it wasn't just an escape. It was the price of my soul. Subscribe to the channel, you'll need to be prepared for what's coming. Midnight. The back garden of the church. I arrived first, my heart beating so loudly that I was certain the soldiers 3 streets away could hear it. The night air was cold against my skin, carrying with it the scent of damp earth and fear. My hands trembled slightly as I checked my watch for the 3rd time. Each second felt like an eternity. One by one, they began to appear. Entire families. Madame Laurent with Marie, supporting each other as they walked. The Bernstein couple with their 2 young children, the smallest barely 4 years old, clutching a worn teddy bear. Monsieur Fournier, the watchmaker, arrived last, his hands shaking more than usual. 19 people. 19 heartbeats far too loud. I counted them all. Twice. Then a 3rd time. My eyes verified each face, each expression. I saw fear etched deep in their features. I saw hope flickering like candle flames in the wind. I saw trust that I didn't deserve, that weighed on my shoulders like iron chains. These people had placed their lives in my hands. Their futures. Their children's futures. Absolute silence, I whispered, my voice barely audible even to those standing nearest. No one speaks. No one coughs. If a child starts to cry, muffle it gently. Follow my steps exactly. If I stop, you stop. If I run, you run. Understood. Nodding heads. Eyes wide in the darkness, reflecting what little moonlight penetrated the clouds above. We began. The first stage was to cross Rue Saint-Martin. Normally patrolled every 20 minutes. I had timed it. Precisely. Obsessively. We had a window of 12 minutes between one passing and another. 12 minutes to move 19 people silently across an exposed street. It seemed impossible. Every instinct screamed that we would fail. I peered round the corner, my body pressed against the cold stone wall. The street was empty. Cobblestones glistened with evening dew. In the distance, I heard voices in German. Laughter. Soldiers in a tavern, their voices thick with drink. Better that way. Drunk men are less attentive. Less likely to notice shadows moving in the periphery of their vision. I made the signal. We moved like water, like ghosts, embracing the shadows of the buildings. My feet knew every uneven stone, every crack in the pavement. One of the children stumbled on a loose cobblestone. I caught her before she fell, my hand firm but gentle on her small arm. Her eyes looked up at me, terrified, apologetic. I touched my finger to my lips and smiled as reassuringly as I could manage. My muscles were so tense they ached, every nerve screaming with tension. We crossed. All of us. I counted heads again at the opposite corner. 19. Still 19. 12 minutes had transformed into 10. 2 minutes spare that felt like a divine gift, though I knew better than to trust in Providence. The entrance to the tunnels lay beneath the old abandoned distillery. I had broken the padlock days before and replaced it with one that looked identical, but for which I had the key. The metal was cold against my fingers as I turned it, the click seeming impossibly loud in the silence. We descended one by one, single file down stone steps worn smooth by centuries of footsteps. The darkness swallowed us completely. It was absolute, suffocating, a living thing that pressed against skin and lungs. I lit the red torch. The walls of damp stone glistened faintly in the crimson glow, water seeping through cracks and running in thin rivulets. The air smelled of mold and earth and something older, something that spoke of forgotten times and buried secrets. I heard someone gag. "Breathe through your nose," I whispered. Slowly. "Don't think about the smell. Think about the morning. Think about freedom." The tunnels had been built centuries ago, when the town was smaller and more vulnerable. Used to store wine, then as shelters during ancient invasions that were now just stories in history books. Now they were our passage to freedom. Or to death. There were only two possibilities, and both felt equally likely with every step we took deeper into the earth. We walked in single file. My hand touched the cold wall, guiding, feeling for the familiar marks I had memorized. Each curve was familiar in daylight, but in the darkness, everything seemed different. Threatening. The tunnel seemed to stretch endlessly, twisting and turning like the intestines of some great stone beast. It was then that I heard it. Footsteps above us. Boots. The distinctive sound of military boots on stone. A patrol. My blood turned to ice. I extinguished the torch instantly, plunging us into absolute darkness. Total. Impenetrable. Someone gasped. I placed my hand over that person's mouth. Gently, but firmly. My other hand gestured frantically in the darkness, though no one could see. But they felt it. They understood. The footsteps approached. Closer. Closer still. They stopped directly above us. I could hear voices, muffled through the stone and earth, but unmistakably German. Words I didn't understand, but the tone was clear. Searching for something. Or someone. Had they found the broken padlock? Had someone seen us crossing the street? 1,000 possibilities raced through my mind, each one more terrifying than the last. Minutes that felt like hours passed. 19 people breathing as quietly as humanly possible, some holding their breath until their lungs burned. One of the children began to whimper, the smallest sound, barely audible. The mother pulled her close, murmuring something so softly that not even I could hear it, rocking gently. The footsteps moved. Slowly. Agonizingly slowly. Moving away. Fading. I waited. counted to 100 in my head. Then counted again. My hand was still over someone's mouth. I could feel their rapid heartbeat through their jaw. Only when I was certain, as certain as I could be, did I light the torch again. Pale faces stared at me in the red glow. Eyes reflecting terror. Reflecting trust. I nodded. We continued. The tunnel branched into 3 directions. Without hesitation, I took the left path. The one that passed beneath the river. It was the most dangerous route. The ceiling here was cracked, ancient fissures spreading like spider webs across the stone. Water dripped constantly, the sound echoing in the confined space, forming small pools on the uneven floor. But it was also the least likely to be monitored. No one believed anyone would be mad enough to use it. Except me. We walked bent over, backs aching. The ceiling became lower with every meter we advanced. Monsieur Fournier, the tallest of the group, had to practically crawl, his breathing labored and heavy. I heard it rasping in his chest. He was elderly. Diabetic. His hands shook. Even when he was calm. I didn't know how he found the strength to continue. But he did. They all did. Fear is a powerful motivator. Or perhaps it was something more profound than fear. Hope. We arrived at the central chamber. A more spacious area where 5 tunnels met, like the hub of some ancient underground wheel. I stopped abruptly. I listened. Something wasn't right. A sound. Weak. Constant. Running water? No. Not water. Voices. Coming from one of the other tunnels. My blood froze in my veins. We weren't alone down here. I signaled frantically for everyone to hide in the shadows along the walls. The torch was lowered, dimmed. I watched the darkness of the tunnel to the right, straining every sense. The voices grew louder. Clearer. French. Not German. But who? Criminals using the tunnels for smuggling? Other fugitives attempting the same desperate escape? Collaborators hunting for rewards, selling out their own countrymen for German marks? I needed to know. The not knowing was more dangerous than any answer could be. I left the group pressed against the cold stone walls and approached silently. Each step carefully measured. Breathing controlled, shallow. I saw a faint light ahead, wavering and weak. 2 figures in silhouette. Conversing in low tones. Words I could now distinguish. They said it would be tonight. Soldiers at the bridge. We need to warn. My heart leapt. They were resistance. They had the same idea as us. Or did they know about us? I made a decision in that split second. I appeared in their light. 2 young men, perhaps in their early 20s. They jumped, startled, their hands moving instinctively to knives at their belts. Peace, I whispered urgently. I'm with civilians. 19. Fleeing deportation. They stared at me, eyes adjusting, recognition slowly dawning. André? André Moreau? It was Louis, the blacksmith's son. I had known him when he was a child running through the streets. What are you doing here? He asked, disbelief in his voice. He explained quickly, words tumbling out. Information about German troop movements. They were taking it to contacts outside the town. Critical intelligence. The bridge is blocked, he said, and I felt my carefully constructed plan crumbling. Our entire route depended on that bridge. My stomach dropped. Since when? I asked, trying to keep the desperation from my voice. Tonight. 2 hours ago. They've posted guards. Dogs. It's impossible to cross. I thought rapidly. Too rapidly. My mind racing through alternatives, calculating risks. Is there another way? Louis frowned, uncertain. The where. But it's. He didn't finish. He didn't need to. Damaged. I know. The old where. Used to control the river decades ago, before modern engineering. Now it was partially destroyed. Loose stones. Fast-flowing water that could sweep a grown man off his feet in seconds. One wrong step and someone would be carried downstream, lost in the darkness. It's dangerous, Louis warned, his voice heavy with concern. Everything about this is dangerous, I replied, surprised by how calm my voice sounded when inside I was screaming. He nodded slowly. He understood. In times like these, there were no safe choices. Only degrees of risk. Good luck, André, he said, gripping my shoulder briefly. To you as well. Stay alive. I returned to the group, my mind already reorganizing the route, calculating new timings, new risks. I explained in hushed tones. The bridge was blocked. Soldiers. Dogs. We needed to use the where instead. I watched the fear intensify in their eyes, saw Madame Laurent's face go pale, saw parents instinctively pull their children closer. But I also saw determination. Steel. These people had already come this far. They wouldn't turn back now. It will be slippery, I warned them, keeping my voice steady, authoritative. Hold on to each other. Form a human chain. Slowly. One step at a time. Don't look at the water. Look at the person in front of you. Trust them. Trust me. Monsieur Bernstein raised his hand slightly. The children? His voice cracked on the word. I'll carry one. You carry the other. We'll tie them with rope so they can't fall. Simone handed me a length of rope she had brought, coiled neatly. Bless her foresight. I tested its strength, pulling hard. It would hold. It had to hold. We emerged from the tunnels near the river. The fresh air hit us like a physical force, cold and clean after the suffocating closeness of the underground passages. I gulped it down, filling my lungs, but we couldn't pause to appreciate this small mercy. The weir lay 200 meters ahead. Exposed ground. Open territory. It was 2 in the morning, the darkest part of night, yet also when random patrols happened most frequently. The Germans knew this was when people felt safest, when guards grew tired and complacent. I studied the terrain with the eyes of a soldier, cataloging every advantage, every risk. Bushes to the left. We could use them as partial cover, moving from shadow to shadow. The river's sound would mask our footsteps, but it would also mask approaching soldiers. A double-edged sword, like everything else tonight. Stay low. Move quickly but carefully. Watch where I step. We moved in a crouch, backs aching from the posture. The sound of the river grew louder as we approached, a constant rushing that spoke of power and danger. My feet found purchase on the damp grass, guiding the others through the safest path. Behind me, I could hear their labored breathing, the soft rustle of clothing, the barely audible whimper of an exhausted child being shushed by a desperate parent. We reached the weir. In the faint light of the new moon, it looked even worse than I remembered from my reconnaissance days ago. Stones covered in slimy moss. Water rushing through gaps and holes where the structure had collapsed over the years. One wrong step and someone would be swept away, dragged under by the current, lost forever in the black water. The thought made my hands shake. I tied the first child to me, the youngest Bernstein girl, barely 4 years old. She looked up at me with enormous eyes, too large for her small face, filled with a fear no child should ever know. Her tiny hands clutched at my jacket. I'll protect you, I promised, my voice barely audible over the river's roar. I don't know if she believed me. I don't know if I believed myself. But promises were all we had. I began the crossing. The first stone shifted slightly under my weight, and my heart stopped. I froze, redistributing my balance, feeling the stone settle. Each step was a negotiation with gravity, with fate, with whatever forces govern life and death. The stone beneath my right foot moved treacherously. I nearly fell, my arms windmilling for balance. The child on my back gasped. I caught myself. Breathed. Forced my racing heart to slow. Next step. Behind me, the human chain began to form. Jacques took the rear, ensuring no one was left behind. Madame Laurent was third in line, supported on both sides. 19 people connected by rope and desperation and the shared will to survive. One error and we would all fall like dominoes into the freezing water below. The weight of that responsibility threatened to crush me. We were halfway across when I heard them. Dogs barking. Distant, but not distant enough. The sound carried across the open fields, echoing off the water. German shepherds, the Nazis' favored breed for hunting humans. A patrol. With sniffer dogs trained to detect fear, sweat, the scent of refugees. Had they picked up our trail? Was this routine? It didn't matter. We were exposed, vulnerable, trapped on slippery stones above rushing water. Faster, I hissed back along the chain. But careful. An impossible contradiction, yet absolutely necessary. Speed or safety. We needed both and could guarantee neither. The stones grew more unstable as we progressed. Water splashed up, soaking our clothes, making everything slippery. Someone behind me slipped. I heard the sharp intake of breath, the scrabble of feet seeking purchase. A muffled cry. But the human chain held firm. Hands gripped hands. People who'd been strangers days ago now held each other's lives in their palms. We continued, each step an act of faith. The barking grew louder. Much louder. My muscles burned with tension and effort. The child on my back felt like she weighed as much as a full-grown man, though she couldn't have been more than 20 kilograms. Or perhaps it was the weight of responsibility, of knowing that if I fell, she fell too. 3/4 of the way across now. The far bank seemed simultaneously impossibly close and impossibly far. I could hear voices now, above the barking. German voices shouting orders. Harsh syllables carrying across the night air. They were close. Too close. How many? 4? 6? A full patrol unit? I didn't dare look back, couldn't afford to lose focus even for a second. I leapt for the far bank, my feet finding solid ground at last. I turned immediately, reaching back to help the next person across. Quickly now. One at a time. Don't rush but don't stop. My hands pulled them to safety, one after another. Marie came across, her face set with determination. Then Monsieur Fournier, moving slowly, every step clearly agonizing. The diabetic watchmaker who should have been home in bed, not fleeing for his life across a broken weir. 2 more. 3 more. Madame Laurent was near the end of the chain, supported by 2 younger men. Her face was grey with pain, her injured knee barely able to support any weight. I could see her teeth clenched, see the tremors running through her body. But she kept moving. One impossible step after another. Then she fell. Her foot slipped on the moss-covered stone and she went down hard onto her already injured knee. I heard the sickening crack even over the river's roar. She cried out, she couldn't help it. The sound cut through the night like a knife. On the far bank, the dogs went absolutely wild. The German voices grew louder, more urgent. They'd heard. They were coming. I didn't think. Thinking would have meant hesitation, and hesitation meant death. I stepped back onto the weir, my feet finding the familiar stones, and grabbed Madame Laurent. She was heavier than she looked, dead weight in my arms, her face twisted in agony. I'm sorry, she gasped. Leave me. Never, I cut her off. I lifted her in my arms, literally lifted her, and ran. Ran across slippery stones above rushing water with a 70-year-old woman in my arms and a child on my back. It should have been impossible. Perhaps it was. Perhaps we were already dead and this was just a dream. But my feet found purchase. Found the path. And I ran. Behind us, the barking reached a crescendo. I heard splashing, the dogs reaching the river. Or had they found the weir? Were they following? I didn't look back. Couldn't look back. The forest loomed ahead, dark and welcoming. Safety. Sanctuary. Perhaps. We crashed into the darkness of the trees just as gunfire erupted behind us. The sharp crack of rifles, the whine of bullets cutting through air. A tree next to my head exploded in splinters. Someone screamed. But no one fell. No one was hit. We kept running, crashing through undergrowth, branches whipping at faces, roots threatening to trip us with every step. I threw myself to the ground with Madame Laurent still in my arms, trying to shield her with my body. The others scattered into the undergrowth, finding whatever cover they could. Pressed flat against the cold earth, I could smell damp leaves and fear sweat. My own heart hammered so hard I thought my ribs might crack. I heard the soldiers reach the weir. Their voices loud with excitement and fury. Torches swept through the darkness, beams of light cutting through the night like searchlights. The dogs were barking frantically, pulling at their leashes. My blood turned to ice. They were coming. Coming into the forest. We were finished. But then something happened. One of the dogs suddenly barked in a different direction. South. Away from us. The handler shouted something. The other soldiers responded, their voices confused, debating. The second dog joined the first, both pulling southward now. A heated discussion in German. Sharp orders. A decision made. The sounds began to fade. Gradually. Agonizingly slowly. The dogs leading their masters away on some false trail. Or perhaps a real one, maybe there were others fleeing tonight, drawing the patrol away from us by pure chance or sacrifice. I would never know. The beams of torches swept one last time through the trees above us, then moved away. The voices grew distant. Then silent. We lay there for what felt like hours but was probably only minutes. 19 people pressed against the forest floor, barely daring to breathe, waiting for the gunfire to resume, for the dogs to return. But there was only silence. The deep, profound silence of the forest at night. Owls hooting. Wind in the leaves. The collective ragged breathing of people who just stared death in the face and somehow survived. Slowly, cautiously, I raised my head. Listened with every sense stretched to its limit. Nothing. No dogs. No voices. No footsteps. Just the night sounds of the forest. I helped Madame Laurent sit up. In the faint moonlight filtering through the canopy, I could see her knee was badly swollen, twice its normal size. She needed a doctor. Proper medical care. But we didn't have doctors in the forest. We had only kilometers ahead and dawn approaching with terrifying speed. "Can you walk?" I whispered to her, though I could already see the answer in her pain-twisted features. Madame Laurent was stubborn, 70 years of French stubbornness compressed into one determined old woman. "I can," she replied, but her voice trembled with the lie. Jacques appeared at my side, his face scratched and bleeding from branches. Together, we helped her stand. She made a sound, not quite a scream, but close. A whimper of pure agony that she tried to swallow. "We need to keep moving," I said to the group, keeping my voice low but firm. 3 kilometers to the free zone. We have perhaps 2 hours before dawn. Maybe less. We began to walk. Much slower now. Madame Laurent limped heavily between Jacques and me, supported under each arm. Each step she took was a small contained cry of pain that broke my heart. Marie walked alongside, holding her grandmother's hand, silent tears streaming down her young face. The kind of silent crying that's somehow worse than sobs. The forest was dense, almost impenetrable in places. Ancient trees with gnarled roots that seemed deliberately placed to trip us. Branches scratched at exposed skin, drew blood, tore clothing. One of the children, the small boy, began to cry, exhausted beyond his ability to stay silent. "Shish, mon chéri," his mother soothed, rocking him as they walked. "We're almost there." Another gentle lie. We still had so far to go. But sometimes lies are necessary. Sometimes they're all that keep us moving. I knew this forest. Had hunted here with my father as a child, before the war, before the world fell apart and spat out the broken pieces. There was a path, not official, just a trail that deer and hunters used. It was our best route forward now. Less chance of patrols venturing this deep into the woods. But slower. Always a choice between safety and speed. I chose safety. The living were worth more than the quick. After an hour of painful progress, we stopped in a small clearing. Everyone was exhausted, running on nothing but fear and willpower. Monsieur Fournier sat heavily against a tree trunk, his breathing irregular and concerning. Simone went to him immediately, checked his forehead with practiced efficiency. He was sweating coldly, his skin clammy. "Diabetes," she whispered to me, her voice tight with worry. "He needs sugar. Soon." I searched my pack, pulled out the bread I'd brought. It seemed pitifully inadequate. I offered it to Fournier. He took it with shaking hands, chewed slowly like each bite required conscious effort. His eyes were glassy, unfocused. How much longer could he continue? I looked up at the sky through the lattice of branches overhead. It was beginning to lighten. Subtly, almost imperceptibly, but definitely lightening. The deep black of true night giving way to the dark gray that preceded dawn. Time. Always time, our greatest enemy. 5 minutes, I announced quietly. Then we continue. Rest while you can. I used those 5 minutes to check on everyone. The children were frightened but physically unharmed. The Bernsteins held each other in a tight family unit, drawing strength from their closeness. Marie was helping her grandmother drink from a water bottle with tender care. Others simply stared at nothing, too exhausted even to think, existing in a state beyond tiredness where the body moves purely on instinct. "André." Jacques' voice was urgent but quiet. He was pointing back the way we'd come. Through the trees, barely visible, I saw them. Lights. Faint but unmistakable. Torches or electric lamps. Coming from the direction we'd traveled. Patrol? Soldiers tracking us? Had they found our trail after all? "Murd," I whispered. The profanity felt inadequate. I thought quickly, weighing options that all seemed equally bad. Continue on the trail where we'd make better time but be more visible? Or deviate deeper into the forest where we'd be safer but slower? Deeper meant more difficult terrain. Meant Madame Laurent would struggle even more. But it might also mean survival. We're leaving the trail, I decided. Deeper into the forest. Now. We walked for another hour. Until we were certain we were safe. In a clearing, we finally stopped. The sun rose completely. Golden light through the trees. I looked at the 19. Exhausted. Scratched. Frightened. But alive. All alive. Madame Laurent embraced me. Cried on my shoulder. Marie too. Then the others. One by one. Silent embraces. Gratitude that words couldn't express. "What do we do now?" someone asked. "There's a village 3 kilometers away. Resistance friends. They'll help you continue onwards. Silence. And you? Jacques asked. I looked back. Towards the direction of my town. Occupied. Oppressed. I'm going back. André, no. They know. They'll catch you. Perhaps. But there are more people. More lists. More nights. It wasn't true. At least not completely. The truth was I no longer knew who I was outside that town. Outside those streets. Outside that weight. Leaving meant abandoning part of myself. The part that still believed a man could make a difference. I guided the group to the village. So when they were received. Federation sheltered. Marie embraced me one last time. You're a hero, she whispered. I didn't answer. Heroes were people in books. I was just a baker who couldn't sleep at night. I returned alone. Through the forest. Through the fields. Through the tunnels. I entered the town at 3 p.m. The streets were agitated. Soldiers everywhere. Searching. Interrogating. I kept my head down. Returned to the bakery. Monsieur Dubois saw me. His eyes widened. André. I thought. I just nodded. I need to work. He understood. Never asked. Never asked. That night, alone in my room, I looked at my hands. They still trembled. Not from fear. From something deeper. I had crossed a line. Not the railway line. Another line. Interior. The line between observing and acting. Between living and existing. 3 days later, they knocked on my door. It wasn't Germans. It was Louis. There's another list, he whispered. 23 this time. I looked at him. Saw the question in his eyes. I nodded slowly. In the following months, there were more nights. More tunnels. More desperate runs. We saved 57 people. Then 84. I lost count. Each face became part of me. Each name a mark on my soul. Until the night we couldn't. The night the patrol was waiting. The night the tunnel was blocked. We lost 5 people that night. 5 who weren't fast enough. 5 who trusted me. That's when I knew I needed to stop. Not because I was afraid. But because I would become careless. Bitter. And careless people make mistakes. And mistakes cost lives. On the last day of 1942, I left the town. Didn't tell anyone. Simply disappeared. Some say I was captured. Others that I joined the resistance in the mountains. The truth? I walked westward. Away from the war. Away from the memories. But the memories followed me. Each face. Each name. Madame Laurent with her destroyed knee. Marie with her silent tears. The small children who trembled on my back. And the 5 I didn't save. Years later, when the war ended, I returned. The town was different. Scars everywhere. But alive. I found Madame Laurent. She still limped. But Marie was beside her. Married. With a baby in her arms. She saw me. Smiled. That smile was worth everything. You disappeared, she said. I needed to, I replied. Why? I looked at the baby in her arms. At the rebuilt streets. At the sky free of flags with swastikas. Because some things are too heavy to carry in daylight. They need the darkness. I didn't stay long. Couldn't. Some men are made for times of peace. Others for war. Me? I was made for those nights. For those tunnels. For those moments where the choice was simple. Save or not save. Live or die. I left again. This time forever. They say I was seen in other towns. Other countries. Always helping. Always in the shadows. Perhaps it's true. Or perhaps people need to believe heroes exist. That someone, somewhere, still fights. What I know is this. On that night in 1940, when I guided 19 people through the darkness, I died a little. The part of me that believed in happy endings. The part that thought the world made sense. But something was also born. The certainty that even in the darkest night, even under the weight of marching boots, even when everything seems lost, a man can choose. Can choose not to ignore. Not to bow. Not to give up. And that choice, however costly it may be, however much it transforms us, however much it consumes us, is the only thing that keeps us human. It's the only light worth carrying in the darkness. Sometimes I wonder whether I made the right choice. Whether those nights were worth the weight I carry to this day. But when I close my eyes, I see Marie's face, I see the children who trembled on my back, and I know there was no other choice. Not for me. You who have lived through difficult times, who know the bitter taste of impossible decisions, Tell me, what would you have done in my place? When darkness knocks at the door and the only light left is what we carry inside, can we truly turn away? Leave in the comments what this account awakened in you. Your stories, your pain, your silent choices that no one ever knew about. Share this burden with me. We're not alone in this journey. And if this story touched something within you, if it made you remember times we'd rather forget but which defined us, subscribe to this channel. Here we tell the stories that need to be remembered. The ones that hurt, but which make us human. Until the next story.